Once again, I'm Brian Winnikins. We are at World Dairy Expo, and we'd like to say thank you to Comro Sales and Service, AMPI, Ware Chevrolet of Bangor, the Animal Wellness Center of Buffalo Valley, and Annabis Silo of Durand. And joining us is Polly Ruhland. She is the Chief Executive Officer with the Cattlemen's Beef Board. It's the Beef Checkoff. And Patty, thank you for joining us. Well, I understand this is your first trip to Expo?
It is. I've never been to the World Dairy Expo before. I go all around the country. I see producers in all states, but the first time I've been to the Dairy Expo.
Wow. Okay. Now, the dairy industry is about, what, 22% of the beef industry?
Right now, about 25% of our beef comes from the dairy industry. It varies from about 20 to 40 sometimes, as high as 40 sometimes. Right now, about 25% of the beef that everybody eats around the country comes from the dairy industry.
So it's very important then for dairy farmers to keep that in mind when they're taking care of their herds, right?
Absolutely. Every dairy farmer is a beef producer, every single one, and they all pay the beef checkoff when they sell into the beef supply. So it's really important. I always say that dairy cows always have to re-career, and when they re-career, they go into the beef industry.
Now, one of the things that the Beef Checkoff has been doing is trying to do some marketing, find ways to use different cuts of beef. Now, here at World Dairy Expo, I had some steak, but it was not ribeye, it was not T-bone, it wasn't sirloin, it was, I think, shoulder or something like that. I mean, it was a totally different cut of meat. Is that one of the big things that consumers need to know about, that there's a lot more choices out there?
Well, they do, and here's what we've done with Beef Checkoff. A few years ago, we did some really intensive research to discover how we can recut traditional areas of the carcass to add value so that consumers pay just a little more for a better eating experience, but they don't have to pay a lot more for the best eating experience. So we discovered a lot of ways to recut the carcass, and we called those the value cuts. And I think what you had downstairs, we were cooking up some samples from the petite tender, which is from the chuck. That's a value cut. And so we've kind of discovered, who would have thought, right? A carcass is a carcass, you cut it and you sell it. That's not true. A lot of our research has proven that you can cut carcass a different way to get consumers the size they want, the eating experience they want, for the right price.
And I'll tell you what, it tasted like T-bone to me. It's amazing just how proper preparation makes a difference.
It's true.
And now, well, let's talk a little bit about 2014. You've done the funding meetings and the 2014 plan. Tell us about that.
The 2014 plan was just finalized last week by the 20 beef producers and dairy producers that are on what we call our operating committee. So every year we take a projection about what we think we're going to collect in the beef checkoff for the next year, and our fiscal year starts October 1st. And a lot of contractors for the beef industry come in front of that committee and say, here's what we can do for you. And the committee decides, here's the best plans, here's what we want to do for 2014, and they award funds for those marketing plans. Marketing, promotion, research, education. So we have an extensive promotion plan that includes digital advertising in a large way for the first time. We are focusing right now on the millennials, very important. You hear about it from every angle, how big it is, the generation is, how important they are as far as buying decisions. So the beef industry, Beef Checkoff, is focusing on millennials this time more heavily than we ever have before. That's probably one of the main shifts in our strategy for 2014.
Again, we are talking with Polly Ruhland. She is the Chief Executive Officer of the Cattlemen's Beef Board. Polly, let's talk a little bit about those resources. We've been seeing a decline in the herd over the last 2 years with all of the crazy weather we've been having. Obviously, yeah, when maybe last year when the herd was being called off quickly, you may have seen a bump in revenue, but now we're starting to see that drop considerably.
That's true, and Texas particularly is a huge cattle producing state. They had devastating drought for a number of years. And when you see states like that are heavy beef cattle states, have those extreme weather conditions that call the herd, we now have a herd size that's the smallest it's been since 1950 on the beef side. While we've been very efficient at increasing the pounds of beef per animal, it hasn't caught up with the fact that we've been culling cows at an alarming rate for about 3 years. Now, because we collected the beef checkoff on a per head basis, our revenue has been falling and falling and falling. And as you say, we haven't seen it fall as significantly as we thought it would, because as we cull, we sell, and then we collect the dollars. But here comes the fat lady is singing right now, I think, for the beef checkoff, and that is in 2014 we definitely expect to see some herd expansion. as producers retain those females, we won't get that dollar. So the beef checkoff could be seeing more significant declines in 2014 than we've seen the last 3 years. So we're trying to prepare for that.
Finally, before we let you go, if producers and or consumers have questions about either the checkoff or maybe how to prepare some of these value cuts, where can they go?
Well, producers, probably the first place to go, mybeefcheckoff.com. Consumers, if they have recipe questions, beefitswhatsfordinner.com. Or if they have questions about production, how beef is raised, where does my food come from, factsaboutbeef.com.
All right. Polly, again, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Polly Ruhland, she is the Chief Executive Officer of the Cattlemen's Beef Board. From World Dairy Expo, I'm Brian Winnekins.